Bungie really wants us to use Arc Titan in PvE this season. They took one of the worst Titan exotics we've ever gotten and massively buffed it. The exotic Point Contact Cannon Brace now jolts targets hit by the lightning that's created around you. They then buff the damage from each lightning bolt in PvE by 300% from 50 damage to 200. And if that wasn't enough, the lightning also gets buffed another 50% when you're amplified. With this build, you're constantly amplified, you gain bonus super damage while amplified from your artifact, you get insanely fast cooldowns for ability spam, you constantly jolt everything around you, you have massive damage resistance, and you have infinite on-demand healing whenever you need it, which is something all Arc subclasses struggle with. This is one of the most addicting and powerful Titan builds possible this season. For your abilities, you're going to be using the Thunder Crash super since it's still the best out of the two, even though Fists of Havoc just got recently buffed. For your class ability, use either the Rally Barricade or Thruster since they both have the shortest cooldowns. It doesn't really matter which one of the two you use, they're mostly just used to give your melee and grenade abilities more energy. And for your grenade, you're going to go with the Pulse Grenade because with the Touch of Thunder aspect, your Pulse Grenade will create ionic traces periodically as it damages targets, and it'll also increase its damage over time. This is just one of the ways we're going to make a bunch of ionic traces with this build. These ionic traces are just going to funnel a bunch of energy to our abilities. For our second aspect, we're going to use Knockout. Critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attacks with arc energy, and it also increases your melee range and damage for a short time. This is pretty important because this makes all of your normal melee attacks count as powered melees for the armor mods that we're using in this build. Also, when you defeat any target with a normal melee or a powered melee, it'll start your health regen and it'll make you amplified. For our fragments, we're going to use Spark of Resistance, which gives plus 10 strength. This is pretty nice for a melee first centered build like this, and you're also more resistant to incoming damage while surrounded by enemies. The second fragment is Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. This is only really helpful if you're using a weapon that has Volt Shot on it, since it'll be jolting targets for you and then making ionic traces. If you don't want to use a weapon with Volt Shot, or if you want to use something else, go with Spark of Discharge instead. What that does is arc weapon final blows have a chance to create ionic traces. So either way, you're going to get a fragment that makes ionic traces for you. It just depends on if you want to use an arc weapon with Volt Shot or an arc weapon without Volt Shot. The third fragment is Spark of Recharge. While critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerates more quickly. Since this build is a more close quarters combat kind of build, you'll probably be taking a little bit more damage than you're used to. There are a bunch of damage resistances and a lot of healing that's going on, so your health might dip down into that critically wounded area, but you're never going to die. And when that happens, you'll get your grenade and your melee back faster, so then you can melee to get your health back. And the final fragment is Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. This also gives plus 10 resilience, and it just makes our melees a lot more powerful. Moving on to our armor mods from the top down, starting with our helmet. We're going to use two hands-on mods. This gives you bonus super energy on melee kills. This is one of the areas that makes the knockout aspect so powerful. All of your normal melees are going to count as powered melees for hands-on here. So if you're not going to be spamming Thunderclap, you can also use your normal melee and you're just going to be getting tons and tons of super energy. For the last mod on your helmet, I recommend Harmonic Siphon. This is just a cheap way to get orbs of power from arc weapon multi-kills. Moving on to the gloves, this is your exotic and what the entire build is built around. The Point Contact Cannon Brace has been pretty bad since it was released a few seasons ago, but Bungie just buffed this exotic, increasing the damage of its lightning attacks by 300%. What this exotic does is defeating targets with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy. Targets near you when you use your Thunderclap suffer lightning strikes and become jolted, and if you're amplified, it increases the damage of those lightning strikes. The amount of melee energy that you get back depends on what type of enemies you kill. For your trash enemies like Thralls, you're going to be getting about 9% melee energy for each kill. For the orange bar enemies that are a step above that, you're going to be getting about 13%, and for the enemies above that, it's 20%. So for the most of the enemies that you're going to be killing, it's going to be anywhere from 9 to 20% melee energy back per kill. And so you should see with just this exotic alone, we're going to be spamming a lot of Thunderclaps. They're going to be a lot more powerful than normal, and since most of the time using this exotic alone isn't going to be enough to get us a full Thunderclap when we use our Thunderclap, the rest of these armor mods are going to give us that last little bit of melee energy we need. For the armor mods on your gloves, we're going to be using Heavy Handed. Your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. Remember, that is not just your Thunderclap ability, that is also your normal melee while knockout is active. And what's really cool about heavy-handed is that there is no cooldown between orbs that you make. You can literally be creating orbs of power for yourself and your allies as quickly as it takes just to melee. For the second armor mod, we're going to use Impact Induction. Causing damage with a melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. Since we're going to be spamming so many melees, we want to funnel that into grenades so we can also throw a grenade as much as possible. And the final mod on your gloves is going to be Melee Kickstart. When your melee energy is fully expended, you gain melee energy back. And the more armor charges you'll have, the more melee energy you'll get back. For your chest armor, the only armor mod that's really required is Charged Up. It increases the total amount of armor charges that you can hold from 3 to 4. So it basically just increases the amount of melee energy you get back from Melee Kickstart. For your other two armor mods, you can use any combination of ammo reserves or damage resistance. You can either go one of each or double up on either one. It really just depends on the type of content you're playing. If it's more easy content, you can go double reserves. If it's more middle of the road, maybe one of each. But in endgame content, you're probably going to be using double damage resist, so really it just depends on the type of content that you're going into. For your leg armor, you're going to be using stacks on stacks. Picking up an orb of power grants you 1 additional stack of armor charge. So now you just need to pick up 2 orbs of power and you'll be at the max of 4 because it's charged up on your chest. And also when you pick up those orbs of power, you're going to get health back from the recuperation armor mod, and you're going to get melee energy for the invigoration armor mod. And since we're going to be constantly spawning orbs of power with this build, we're always going to be getting health back, and we're also going to be getting a ton of melee energy, so we always have thunderclaps to spam. For your class ability, you're going to use Reaper, which creates an orb of power when you get a weapon kill after using your class ability. You're also going to use Outreach, which gives you melee energy when you use your class ability, and you're going to use Bomber, which gives you grenade energy when you use your class ability. The weapons that I recommend with this build, really any arc weapon that you can get a bunch of easy kills with, especially if that arc weapon has volt shots, so Ikelos SMG, Prodigal Return, Brigand's Law, and Path of Least Resistance are some of the most popular. My personal favorite is Cold Heart, the exotic trace rifle, because it has a chance of making ionic traces. Again, those ionic traces funnel energy back to your abilities. So how does this build work? This build centers around using and abusing your Thunderclap melee ability. Getting kills with Thunderclap will restore melee energy back to you from both your exotic gloves and from the Melee Kickstart armor mod. You also create orbs of power from the heavy-handed armor mod. You'll gain bonus super energy from the hands-on armor mod. You'll gain grenade energy from the impact induction armor mod. You'll gain health from the knockout aspect. And you'll also jolt enemies because of point contact cannon brace, creating ionic traces that feed all of your abilities more energy. Orbs of power also play a huge part in this build. You make them from any weapon kill that you get after using your class ability, from arc weapon multi-kills, and then from melee kills, both the normal melee and your thunderclap. And with your class ability, which again, you should either use thruster or rally barricade because they have the lowest cooldowns, you gain melee and grenade energy back. Here's a quick gameplay loop to maximize this build. First, get thunderclap kills to gain all the bonuses that I mentioned. Then use your class ability and get some arc weapon kills to make a ton of orbs of power. Picking up these orbs of power then heal you and give you melee energy for more thunderclaps. Once you have 4 stacks of armor charge, you're maxed out and you can thunderclap again. You'll get about 36% of your melee immediately refunded from the melee kickstart mod, and then you'll get a bunch more depending on how many kills you get because of the cannon brace exotic. Any melee energy that you're still missing comes from the ionic traces and the orbs of power that you pick up. And that's pretty much the loop. Use Thunderclap, use Thruster, get weapon kills, pick up orbs of power, and repeat. Feel free to throw any grenades whenever you want to into the mix to make some more ionic traces. If you like this build, hit the like button on the video and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.